Hi, my name is Beth Azor, and I own shopping centers in South Florida. And this is my podcast, I Own a Shopping Center, Now What? So I got a call and spoke to an owner of a property who bought in a town that he lives in, which I love, but he's been having a hard time leasing it. So I asked him to send me a site plan, and I got a flyer, a brochure, a video, a lot of information. So the first thing that I noticed, and he had said that there was a property across the street that was fully leased, 300,000 square feet, fully leased to medical offices. It was a former mall. And when I looked at the site plan that he sent me, and the property was about 30,000 square feet, I saw that there was one tenant that was listed, that was on the picture of the flyer, and it appeared to be an industrial or warehouse tenant. However, the flyer promoted all kinds of uses. So it said good for office, good for retail, good for entertainment, good for medical, all kinds of different uses. So I noticed that. And then I looked at the population, and within 1 mile, it was very dismal, under 5,000 people. And the income was very low. And the traffic counts, because it was on a side street and not the main street, very low. So a couple things. I recommended that he focus the brochure and the flyer on one thing. And maybe you can have 3 different flyers. Maybe one flyer focuses on entertainment and why you think it would be good for entertainment, that there's, let's say, a nearby entertainment area, and then you focused on that. And maybe you do a rendering of a restaurant space in one of your vacancies, and then do another flyer or brochure focused on medical. And the same thing, you do maybe a rendering and a vacancy on, which you can do now in AI, at almost no cost, of a medical space. Also, the brochure mentioned that it could add an out parcel, and there were very few parking spaces. So and also the brochure said it was for lease and for sale. So I told him to remove the for sale on the leasing brochure, because if you're a prospective tenant and you want to lease space, you don't want to think that it's going to be sold from under you, right? So I told him to take that off. I said, I think you should take off that out parcels available, because if you lease an out parcel now while you have so much vacancy, you'll never lease the vacancy, because it's going to block the visibility and exposure and further diminish the parking spaces, which are already low to begin with. So there's way too much going on, right? They're throwing the kitchen sink in one brochure, and a confused mind doesn't buy. So they're having a hard time leasing it because they don't have a plan. They have a lot of plans, but I think that they need to be strategic and focused with different marketing materials. I also mentioned that since the person across the street leased up their mall to 100% and has a waiting list, that I would go try to hire that guy. Or if that guy owns it and isn't looking for a third-party gig, who does he know in the market? Or if he signed 300,000 square feet of medical, that could have been 100 deals. Which are his favorite tenant rep brokers that brought him the medical, and go talk to them or interview them. He does have an agent on the listing that did the brochure that had the kitchen sink on it. And I said to him, that is the agent prospecting. I took over a 15% occupied mall in Cleveland, Ohio, and then I signed 59 leases. And how did I sign 59 leases? With no brokerage help, no tenant rep brokerage help, and no sign on the building. I went and met 3,800 businesses in Cleveland. So I said, how many businesses has your leasing agent prospected? So many different ideas. The same with that mall that I did in Cleveland, I had separate brochures. I had a food court brochure. I had a retail brochure. I had a sit-down restaurant brochure. So I did what I'm telling you to do. I couldn't have all of those on one brochure. I would never leased it. You've got to narrow your focus. So you can't do the kitchen sink trying to be all things to all prospects. It's not going to work, and super hard to use that kind of flyer, to get prospects interested. It's just too much information. If they had a medical person, the first thing the medical person's going to say is there's not enough parking. And then you have on the brochure that you want to add an out parcel in the parking lot. So too much information, focus, think about who is the prospect you're trying to get, and does your brochure speak to that prospect? So those are my ideas. And then leverage success in the neighborhood. The guy across the street is a huge success. I'd be his best friend. So hope this helps. If you have a challenge, send me an email. Let's get on a phone. Send me your site plan. I'm happy to give my feedback. It might not be what you want to hear, but I think it is helpful based on my 39 years of doing this. So if you like the podcast, I hope you subscribe, share it with your friends, and I'll see you next week.